This is the podcast overview for the objectives for Chapter 10, Aggression. So, number one, you want to contrast the views of Freud, Lorenz, and evolutionary perspectives in terms of how aggression develops. So, different theories discuss different aspects of how we think aggression develops. Neither one of these perspectives is right over another. They're just a kind of different lenses or different views of how we look at aggression. But you're to be familiar with all of them. Freud had some of the earliest things to say about aggression as he worked with many different clients in psychotherapy and would come across various aspects of aggression in his patients. And then Lorenz sort of merged onto the field and put another perspective on how we might view aggression. And of course, evolutionary perspectives have existed throughout all of it. So just understand the basic tenets of each one of those perspectives. Two, state the purpose of drive theories of aggression, so the drive theory of aggression, and note the most well-known of these theories. So there's a few different drive theories, and you can think of this as sort of what is driving aggression, what's at the core of aggression. And one is still sort of stuck around to today in terms of how we view aggression. So understand the purposes of those. Three, outline the variables involved in the general aggression model and briefly explain how this model operates. So sort of a more general, non-specific lens of viewing aggression. Discuss why the original frustration-aggression hypothesis is not considered to be accurate by most contemporary social psychologists. So for a long time, we viewed aggression as stemming from a sense or feeling of frustration. This has been sort of rebuked in terms of we know that this isn't necessarily so. So contemporary psychologists have, still like to understand it, but consider it not as accurate in explaining aggression as some of the other models. Outline the major points of excitation transfer theory. This is another really big theory as to where aggression comes from and how it can transfer onto other aspects of a person's behavior. Discuss the links between violence in both the media and pornography. All of these three elements are key players in aggression: violence, media, and pornography. Three of the most driving forces behind aggression and aggressive tendencies, and we see a lot of it in the media. Define cultures of honor. What does that mean, a culture of honor? And discuss the issue of sexual jealousy. So there too is another source or origin of aggression. So what surrounds that? What does that mean? Identify individual difference or personal causes of aggression. And in this, you can discuss type A behavior pattern, hostile and instrumental aggression, and hostile attributional bias. These are different aspects of the person that can be precursors to aggressive tendencies. These are individual differences, and social psychologists look at it as sort of the personal aspects of aggression, so i.e. not environmental sources or not stemming from the situation, but something due to the person. So you want to be familiar with type A behavior pattern, hostile aggression and instrumental aggression, as well as hostile attributional bias, where we attribute cause to other people's behavior can often come from a hostile place. A person with hostile attributional bias assumes from the get-go that other people's reasons for doing what they do comes from an aggressive place or a hostile place. Identify the nature of gender differences in aggression. Some really big gender differences pop out when we take a look at aggression and how it is not only displayed by men and women, but also sort of how our culture views it. Discuss how temperature and alcohol might influence aggression. So these are environmental variables. These are variables due to the situation that can affect one's aggressive tendencies or aggression levels. Contrast the characteristics of bullies, victims, and bully victims, and note the ways by which bullying behavior can be reduced. So what are some common characteristics that bullies share, that victims of bullying share, and then bully victims, people who are victims of bullying and then themselves become bullies. What traits do these each have? And what does the research say about how we can reduce a culture of bullying behavior? Note the prevalence of workplace violence and summarize the 3 main categories of aggression in the workplace. So this is a unique kind of view of aggression and how it happens in one's workplace. What would be considered workplace aggression and workplace violence, and how do we commonly see it today as manifesting in the workplace? Consider whether punishment can be an effective deterrent to violence. It's been long since thought that punishment is an effective deterrent to violence. This has some backing. It also has some criticism to it. And what is that? Evaluate the veracity of the catharsis hypothesis. So when we think about the catharsis hypothesis, it's stating that, we can eliminate some of our aggressive tendencies by doing so in proper ways. If we just have a channel for our aggression, like a pillow to punch, that would help us, and it would help people to not be as violent or aggressive. Is that true? How verifiable is that? What is the validity behind that, if any? And then lastly, identify the various techniques, both cognitive and non-cognitive, maybe more behavioral, that can be used in order to reduce aggression. So how do we reduce aggression? What are some techniques used in therapy? There is such a thing as anger management. It works, it helps, but what kinds of strategies are used there? And that completes the overview of Chapter 10 objectives.